Why do we keep hearing about the underpaying stuff?
I'm broke.
Just to get that bonus. I've been so broke my whole life because of this sport.
Out of his mind, those numbers aren't right.
Okay.
We didn't make 42.5 million and he made $1 million.
Okay.
That's not true.
If you don't have that commercial personality, I'll call it, like a McGregor, and you're just a beast-ass fighter, you didn't lose, but it's much harder for you. Kamaru Usman's a good example.
Being an athlete is supposed to be a short-term yet lucrative career. At least that's the case in the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL. Unfortunately, it is very different in the UFC. Only the top fighters get life-changing money, and an injury to a mid-tier fighter can significantly hurt their lifestyle. So in today's video, we here at Athlete Central want to discuss the problem with UFC fighter pay and see why YouTube star Jake Paul gave former welterweight champion Tyron Woodley his biggest fight purse ever. Okay, so let's start off with the Paul Woodley fight. T. Wood claims that the fight has generated just under 1 million pay-per-view buys. That is one of the top 10 boxing pay-per-view sales of all time. All of this has been achieved by a YouTube sensation. People care about star value. They care about infectious personalities, controversy. The recent boxing invasion by the Paul brothers has shown all of this. Skilled fighters are appreciated by hardcore fans, but the casual only cares about big-name fighters. The same thing applies to MMA. Kamaru Usman is objectively the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now, yet fighters like Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal, who are not nearly on the same level as him right now, would sell more pay-per-views. Why? The very same reason the Paul brothers are generating these numbers.
Sitting here, I'm 3 pro fights in, you're 2 pro fights in. How do you and I make more than every single fighter in the UFC?
Because people are invested. Whether they like it or not, they want to see me try to do the impossible, right? Or come close. They want to see you get your ass kicked. Whatever it is, they're invested. They care emotionally, positive or negative.
Tyron Woodley was a defending UFC champion who had a total of 4 title defenses in the biggest MMA organization on the planet. That's enough to be considered an all-time great, but he didn't have a good personality, and so the UFC decided he isn't worth the marketing power. Woodley Thompson 2 has the highest pay-per-view buy rates out of the events Woodley has headlined, and even that is at a measly 300,000, not even a third of his bout against Jake Paul. T. Wood cashed $500,000 for this event, fighting one of the most dangerous men in the world, which compared to the $2 million he made for a fight against a YouTuber seems like pennies. Of course, in our capitalist world, the more money you generate, the more money you are going to get, which makes sense, but this is not the case in the UFC. The pay structure in the organization is horrible when compared to the other sports or even other MMA organizations. The UFC only pays their fighters 16% of the revenue. That is absolutely tragic in comparison to the other organizations. Major League Baseball pays a whopping 54% to their athletes. The NBA gives them half of their revenue, and the NFL gives 48%. The most shocking thing is Bellator's percentage of 44%, the UFC's biggest competition in the MMA world. If their revenue split was also low, this could be viewed as a general problem with mixed martial arts. They can explain that the sport isn't as mainstream, so the company has to invest in itself, but that is obviously not the case. Bellator pays their fighters roughly triple the revenue that the UFC does, and we've seen multiple fighters leave the UFC for Bellator recently for more lucrative offers. Just take a look at Yoel Romero, Rumble Johnson, Corey Anderson, Gegard Mousasi, Sergio Pettis, and the list goes on. The list of top-class fighters fighting outside the UFC may expand if they don't change something about the pay structure. Recently, there have been more athletes speaking out against the organization, wanting an increase in pay. There have even been fighters whom, without the intention of making the UFC look like the bad guys, that have insinuated that they aren't being paid enough. Let's take a look at the Cheyanne Buys interview after finding out that she got a $50,000 bonus for her first-round knockout win over Gloria DePaula.
It was the best decision me and my husband made for our careers, and just to get that bonus. I've been so broke my whole life because of this sport, but it's so worth it to me.
I mean, at first it may seem heartwarming to see someone so happy about her performance and what it has given her, but saying that she's flat broke, that's not a good image for the UFC. Considering how expensive a training camp is, combined with the proper nutrition and taxes on top of that, an athlete would spend a considerable percentage of their fight purse on those expenses alone. Former UFC bantamweight champion Miesha Tate touched upon that in her recent podcast on SiriusXM.
My whole fight purse was gone. I at least spent
I had to be about 98% at least. So maybe I walked away with a little bit, but I have 200,000. Yeah, I'm just lucky I made a bonus, to be honest. I'm serious. That's how much it costs, because you take taxes off the top. 70% of my fight purse is gone immediately, right off the top.
That's just astonishing. She got 200,000 and only got 98% of it. Without the bonus, she would have been at a loss. So imagine that. Training hard for 4 months, eating clean and preparing, beating your opponent, and still losing money? Nah, that's brutal. The killer gorilla Jared Canonnier has also talked about his financial situation recently in his post-fight interview following his main event win over middleweight contender Kelvin Gastelum.
I'm broke.
First of all, a fighter that is in a main event should never have to say I'm broke. The number 3 middleweight in the world doesn't even have enough money to make sure his elderly mother doesn't have to work, as he mentioned in his interview with Ariel Helwani.
My mom is 60. My mom is damn near 7 years old. You know, she shouldn't be working, but she is. My mama needs to retire.
Secondly, Canonnier mentioned that he has to fight soon because of his financial situation.
I'm broke, so I need to fight. Hopefully, I get that title shot. But the right name might make me say yes.
Which leads us on to a bigger point, UFC 251. The lead up to the first Fight Island event was quite chaotic. Welterweight champ Kamaru Usman was set to defend his strap, and Jorge Masvidal seemed to be the clear contender after 3 impressive KO TKO wins over Darren Till, Ben Askren, and Nate Diaz. The main event bout with Diaz sold a lot of pay-per-views, and Masvidal was now a bona fide star. The problem came when Gamebred justifiably wanted a pay raise because of his increased star power. Dana White and the UFC didn't want to pay up, and this is where sports politics came into play. Brazilian contender Gilbert Burns was coming off an impressive win against Tyron Woodley, and that was a matchup that the UFC could justify. Burns would accept way less money than Masvidal. That's why he jumped the line to headline UFC's first Fight Island event. As you probably know, the fight fell through because of an injury to Burns. This is when the UFC decided to pay up and give Masvidal what he was worth. On 6 days' notice, Jorge saved the card, which ended up doing $1.3 million. No doubt, without him, the number wouldn't be anywhere close to that. So I guess at the end, everyone won. Well, except Gilbert Burns. Another high-profile pay dispute in the UFC is the reason for the weird landscape at heavyweight. Jon Jones versus Dana White. The move that everyone had been waiting for so long. The greatest light heavyweight of all time moving up to claim the title of baddest man on the planet. Unfortunately, when JBJ was ready, the UFC wasn't ready to pay up. Jones always said that he'd go up for big money fights. A fight against Francis Ngannou was 100% a money fight, just not $10 million. You can see the UFC's reasoning for this one. I mean, even Conor doesn't make that much per fight. But here we see a similar situation to the Burns-Masvidal one. Since Jones was out of their price range, they called up the Black Beast Derek Lewis to challenge for the title, the cheaper alternative. As we know, the fight didn't materialize, and Cyril Gane dominated Lewis to win the interim title. Let us know who you think will win the Ngannou-Gane matchup in the comments below. Of course, there are fighters that came out and supported the UFC like Kevin Holland and Nathaniel Wood, saying that they were very happy to be making money doing what they love. And there's definitely the other argument that healthcare workers, teachers, and firefighters should be the ones getting paid more, which is definitely valid. Our argument is that the UFC pays their fighters noticeably less than the other organizations, and that is a problem that has to be addressed. Do you guys think that the fighter pay in the UFC is fair? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe to never miss an Athlete Central video. Until next time.